Alright, hey guys, what's up? Dark Sparks here, bringing you some more Space Marine content. This time, it's just going to be my 2 cents on stratagems, particularly the hard mode stratagem, and what I'd like to see changed to make it easier to find pugs or just random games with more than likely players who are more experienced, though you can easily solve this dilemma by going onto the Space Marine Discord and looking for teammates there, as well as being able to plan out who's playing what class and review and change for an optical experience. To start off, I just want to quickly tell you guys why they're called stratagems, and stratagems are actually from the tabletop, and what they are is they're essentially special abilities that can be used during a player's turn in an effort to give their army an advantage, so long as you have the CP or command points required to use them. So some can only be used during your turn, some can be used during either player's turn, and some that are only used during your opponent's turn. There's a whole PDF document that details much of the current stratagems available if you're looking, or if you're someone looking to try the tabletop. Now with that out of the way, at the moment, I'm kind of having some difficulties with random players in particular. I've only ever just joined random games. Yeah, I just mentioned that you can just go on Discord, the Space Marine official Discord, and just look for randoms there, but for me in particular, Discord is having some issues trying to run properly on my computer. A lot of times it'll just stay open, but I can't access it for some reason, for whatever reason. So I just don't really bother with it anymore. The big thing with stratagems in particular, especially hard mode, is the difficulty doesn't actually tell you how difficult it is. PvE operations, so you would go from the easiest difficulty, which is minimal, and then you go up to average, and then the medium difficulty which is substantial, ruthless, lethal, and then of course you have absolute. I think that when it comes down to the difficulty settings for the stratagems here, for normal stratagems, I would just consider that to be at least substantial difficulty. It's not too easy, but it's also not too hard. It's kind of more like you can kind of do whatever you want without too much repercussions as far as getting punished for it. For the hard stratagems, I do believe that it's not actually hard like substantial or ruthless. I do believe that, and I think it's already been actually mentioned before, that hard stratagems is actually akin to absolute difficulty. So if you have not played absolute difficulty, if you're a player who has never experienced it before, I would suggest going into regular standard operations. Just don't deal with the stratagems and play anything that's above ruthless, or at least do ruthless and absolute. That way you can actually get a feel for how tough the enemies are, because a lot of these guys can one-shot you, especially Tyranid warriors, the Tyranid snipers in particular. I'm not too sure what the Nid snipers are called. They can put a real hurt on you, especially if you're not someone who's aware of your surroundings, if you're not aware of what's going on, especially when it comes to the massive hordes coming at you, or when you're dealing with certain stratagems that only spawn Majoris level enemies and very little Minoris level enemies. So especially when you're going up against Tyranids, really just hordes of Nid warriors with a lot of the Nid poison warriors and those Nid sniper warriors. So if you don't have that spatial awareness to kind of determine who's the most important enemies to face, you're going to be having a hard time in these stratagems. I've been jumping into a lot of these hard mode stratagems, and to be quite frank, I have not actually beaten one yet because of the randoms that I get queued up with. I'm also not huge on hardcore difficulty modes. I'm more of a casual player. From all the content I've been posting lately, you guys obviously know I am more about the fashion side of Warhammer than I am about the hardcore aspect of Warhammer, like the difficulties and whatnot. I don't mind playing the hard difficulties, but when it's pretty much just you and 2 teammates who are they're really struggling, I think it's just better to just play the game solo. But I know that players can solo the hard stratagems pretty easily, but that kind of defeats the purpose of playing a co-op game. I want to be able to play this with other players, not with 2 brain dead AI teammates who apparently take very little damage and are really hard to get knocked down and incapacitated and die and whatnot. The biggest thing that probably should happen is the devs really need to implement some sort of a gatekeep on the hard difficulty or hard stratagems in particular. I think what they should do is require a minimum of having a prestige 1 class at level 25, just because the prestige perks, I think those are only really benefit the player. They're not for the entire team, but at level 25 you at least have access to all the perks needed, the team perks, the core perks, the signature abilities and all that. That way you have the options to kind of build out your marine accordingly. Yeah, there are meta builds out there, but to be perfectly frank, I do not know what those meta builds look like. I kind of just go in with the perks that I believe are going to be the best to actually help increase the difficulty, or not increase the difficulty, to help it make it easier for my team to deal with that difficulty. Whether I'm playing Bulwark and I'm trying to give everyone maybe a chance to have their contested health last a little bit longer and maybe give them a better chance to regain most of that contested health before it disappears. Or maybe my tactical marine, I do like having the class perk, or not the class perk, but I do like having the core perk that allows you to regain a grenade every 30 seconds. That's kind of nice, although there's other ones that might be a better option, such as increasing the ranged attack of your entire party, anything like that. But when it comes down to it, even if you are building out accordingly, if you're a player who just doesn't have the experience needed to deal with these higher difficulties, I really highly suggest that you stay away from those difficulties. They are fun. They're only fun to a point. I don't enjoy jumping into these games, even if I'm not jumping into a random game and they're already at the beginning of the mission, or kind of like somewhere close to the first elevator section of a mission or something like that, the first transition of a mission. Even when we first start off, the moment we hit our first horde, my two teammates are already dead. Meanwhile, I have full armor and health. I don't get why do these difficulties. If you're at a point where you know how difficult hard stratagems are, why do you keep doing them if you're not gonna put in the effort to try and make yourself a better player? It's a very team-based environment when it comes to the hard stratagems. You really gotta focus on specific enemies. If you're an assault marine is a very difficult class to use. It is the most difficult class to use, I'd say. It is the hard version of the bulwark, because with the bulwark you have the shield at your disposal. The shield blocks all damage except for some damage that requires you to block or dodge. Not block, but it requires you to dodge in order to not get staggered and take damage. But if you use the assault, you got to use that jump pack to your advantage. If you're coming up against a horde of just nothing but Majoris level enemies, you really ought to focus on, in my experience as an assault, focus on the ranged enemies. That way your other teammates, especially if you have a bulwark in your team, make sure that the bulwark is not being harassed by that ranged enemy. You know what I'm saying? Go and use your jetpack, go behind the enemy lines, take out that ranged enemy, and then flank the rest of that group, making it easier for your bulwark or whoever else in your team to deal with the rest of that horde. That way they're dodging accordingly, not being forced to dodge because of a sniper shot coming inbound or anything like that. You know what I mean? But I don't see any of that going on in hard stratagems. Then there's also some of these stratagems, especially when it comes to the hard and the weekly. There is that one stratagem, I don't know what it's called, but it reduces your health by 66%. I don't know if anyone did that stratagem last week. I think it was on exfiltration, and it included the 66% reduction in maximum health. Really difficult to do, especially in those open areas. I kept coming across players who were ill-equipped to deal with open area combat, open ranged combat. A lot of them were equipped for close range, and you know what, it just wasn't working out. That was probably the least amount of fun I actually ever had, because of just how hard hitting those enemies are. Even when I had a lot of spatial awareness, I knew where a lot of these sniper or like long range enemies were, but for some reason when I try and go towards that one specific enemy, suddenly another ranged enemy will spawn right behind me, and before I can even get a chance to dodge, I'm already hit by that sniper shot. Or in some cases, when we have the biovore spawn, a lot of times I won't hear the biovore coming in behind me or any of the spore mines coming in behind me because there's so much going on in front of me. When it gets really busy, that's like the one few instances, at least in my experience, where I can't actually focus on what is coming in from out there, like a biovore. I literally don't know what happened. Like, I wish I had the footage. It looked like I didn't even get hit by anything. Suddenly I was attacking two Nid warriors right in front of me, and then suddenly I had no health left. And this is that I had full health and full armor, but I was also using the Vanguard, so one less armor segment to deal with. I don't know if that one extra armor segment would have made a difference. That was not a good experience. I mean, I essentially got one-shotted. And then of course there's also the Neurothropes. The Neurothropes are still a common issue since day one with their psychic stream blasts. I even posted a short a couple months ago, or several months ago actually, that showed exactly what's happening here. The hitbox for the psychic stream blasts from these Neurothropes are ridiculous. I still can't figure out where exactly is the hitbox ending and where does it start. Even when I have like what seems to be a perfect dodge, I still get hit by that psychic stream blast. And then before my character is actually recovered on his own, just because when you get hit by it, you're not knockback, but your character recovers on its own, right? But if you get hit by a double Psychic Stream Blast, that's basically game over for you, especially on hard mode and when you have 66% reduced health. I got hit by the first Psychic Stream Blast. This is after I dodged it and I thought I was way out of it, but no, I still got hit by it. And then I wasn't expecting the second Psychic Stream Blast to come in almost instantly. Before my character could get back up, I was hit by the second one and I got killed. So that still needs to be adjusted. I don't know why the developers have not actually done anything to mitigate what's going on with the Neurothropes. I think I kept saying Neurothrope. I meant the Zoanthrope. If I kept saying Neurothrope, I actually meant Zoanthrope. The Neurothrope Psychic Stream Blast, for some reason, is so much easier to deal with than the Zoanthropes. It's the Zoanthropes that have the absurdly weird, difficult, super wide. I don't know, like 4 times wider than the stream actually is than it physically looks. I don't know, but I'm talking about the Zoanthropes, not the Neurothropes. So that's kind of my other issue right there. There's still some enemies in the game that haven't been balanced accordingly, and it just feels like you're being cheated at some point. There have been times where I have done a hard stratagem. I'll get to the boss section. Me and my entire team, we get to the boss section, no problem. And then for some reason, it just all falls apart, even when the boss is easy. Like take Decapitation, for example. Obviously, the Hive Tyrant is a very difficult boss, but at this point, even some of the newer players can still read the attack patterns of the Hive Tyrant and be able to perfect parry everything, or at least just block some attacks. Perfect parry or parry, just do whatever. I mean, it's not hard to fight the Hive Tyrant in melee combat. The only time that the Hive Tyrant kind of gets a little bit wonky is the AoE blast that it has. It shoots out 3 AoE blasts. A lot of times you'll dodge it, but for some reason you'll still get hit by the waves. That still needs to be adjusted. Otherwise, the Hive Tyrant it's a fun boss to deal with. Sometimes dealing with the Carnifex can kind of be a little bit wonky. Dealing with the Scarab Terminators when you're fighting Chaos, they can be a little bit wonky, especially when the Occult Terminators are coming at you with their melee attacks. Sometimes it feels like they've frozen mid-animation or something when they're coming at you and attack and suddenly attack you, and it kind of breaks the flow of combat when you're trying to parry them, or perfect parry, or at least block them. I don't know if that's how if it's intended to be that way, or if maybe it is kind of a glitch or some sort of latency issue. But either way, there are some problems that kind of make it for a player like me, who again is not too much of a hardcore player. When I try and play it, it still feels like I'm getting cheated at some points. No matter how good I am as a player myself, as an individual player, sometimes I just feel cheated. And I think that just comes down to maybe latency issues, or a lot of times when I'm doing melee attacks, my melee attacks will cancel or they'll freeze mid-animation and it won't follow through and finish the rest of the attack. So I'm not too sure if those are ever going to be looked at or not, but overall, the general impact of hard stratagems, at least for me, is they do need to have some sort of a level cap on them. As I said earlier, at least Prestige 1, that way you have at least 1 class perk available to you. At least the minimum needs to be a level 25 character, a max character. That way you have access to all the perks and allow you to rebuild your character as needed. Maybe have a certain build for a specific map, because some maps, there are some builds that work better than other builds, but I don't know those meta builds. I just kind of figure out at my own pace what works for me, depending on the map that I'm in, the situation, and of course the weapons that I'm also using. I mean, I have also come across some players in hard stratagems who are using Tactical Marine or the Heavy, and it's very wide open maps, like say for example Exfiltration. There's a lot of wide open spaces in there. For some reason they feel the need that a Pyroblast weapon is going to do the trick, when Pyroblast is probably the least effective weapon to use in such an open map like Exfiltration. Granted, there are portions of the map or of the mission where it's perfectly fine to use a Pyroblast weapon, because there are plenty of close quarters environments as well, but it's best for them to start off with a ranged weapon, and then when we get to the next section, switch out accordingly. But a lot of players don't really do this. They kind of just stick to that same weapon that they want, even when the weapon's just not working out for them. If you're using a weapon that's not optimized for that specific stage of the mission you're in, it's going to be a detriment not only to yourself but to the rest of the team, because then we have to try and get you rezzed up only for you to possibly die within the next couple seconds. It's not something that a lot of us want to deal with when we're playing the harder difficulties. We're doing these harder difficulties because we want to try and get those rewards, right? But we can't do that when we're stuck with players who kind of refuse to adapt and learn to the environment, to the certain stages in. I mean, it's definitely almost a requirement in hard stratagems to learn the map layouts almost like the back of your own hand. That way you can build out accordingly for what kind of weapons you're going to be using for which section of the map. If you're not doing that, you are going to be having a very hard time with it. That's kind of what I want. That's kind of my whole overview on, or not my overview, it's just my 2 cents on Hard Stratagems. Just to kind of finalize things, just if you're having a difficult time playing Hard Stratagems, just go back to playing regular operations and play Ruthless and Absolute Difficulty just as often as you can, and get it to a point where it starts feeling like that's all you're playing at this point. And then eventually it's going to come across as probably easier just because of how often you're playing it. You're used to how hard hitting the enemies are, and then suddenly you kind of feel like you already know what you're doing. You'll feel like a better player. You'll be able to strategize a bit more. You'll be a little bit more smarter with your loadouts as well. It's just gonna passively make you a better player if you do it that way. I'm just kind of saying it out of love, not being a dick or anything. Stay away from Hard Stratagems. I'm just saying playing Ruthless and Absolute Difficulty will passively make you better. Even if you don't notice it, you'll still come out on top a lot easier with far fewer deaths. Eventually you'll get to a point where you're gonna be completing these without ever dying or getting incapacitated. That about ends it for this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for whatever comes after this. This is Dork Spar signing off.